Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center. And today, we're taking a look at the best starter knives or the best first knives you can get either to kickstart your collection, or this can also serve as sort of a gift guide to get a newbie into the knife world. Let's check them out. Of course, everyone's knife journey is different, but all the suggestions right here would be a good place to start. You can take these as sort of suggestions for a child or maybe an older kid. And before we get anyone screaming about it, only you as a parent are going to know when that age is going to be appropriate. Or maybe you're a bit older and you yourself are just getting into the topic of knives and you're looking for a good place to start. Now, I'm going to try to give you some options here that are long lasting. Even if you or your recipient never gets any further into the knife hobby, these are knives that are going to last and that you're not going to grow out of, so to speak. Now, what a lot of people probably think of when they think of a pocket knife is a classic looking non-locking knife like one of these case knives right here. Maybe it's a nostalgic choice perhaps, but they're still plenty useful today. Now, there's certainly a lot of value to learning how to safely use a non-locking knife, but I really prefer to recommend something with a lock for those that are new to the hobby. So for that reason, I'm going to show you the Case Mini Copper Lock. It's a really solid design and they start at just over 50 bucks. Now, the vibe of these knives can go either old school as well as new, and it all depends on which handle material you go for. On top here, I've got a peach seed jigged bone, and on bottom, a black and white fiber weave. As you can see, they both have very different personalities. And of course, the prices vary a little bit depending on which handle option you get. Now, the blades on these mini copper locks are a good reasonable size without being big and bulky. They're under 3 inches long and with about 2.5 inches of sharpened edge. Now, it's a simple stainless steel. It's not going to hold an edge forever, but it is going to be easy to maintain, and they keep these blades thin and efficient for very easy slicing. It's going to be a great smaller everyday carry knife, and you've got that mid-mounted back lock for security. Now, you can't really talk about classic first pocket knives without talking about a Swiss Army knife. Now, most Swiss Army knives are also non-locking slip joints, but there are some locking models that they do offer. For that reason, I'm going to show what's my personal EDC, the locking EvoGrip S18, which comes in at about 45 bucks right now. Now, you've got a pretty wide assortment of tools on the S18, and pardon me for my tools looking a little bit used. I have had this one for several years, but the loadout is going to work well for both everyday carry as well as making it a good knife to take on camping trips. You've got scissors and a saw, can and bottle openers. There's no corkscrew on this model, but you do have a screwdriver instead, which I personally get more use out of. And then of course you have everyone's favorite features, the toothpick and tweezers. There's a few other things in there as well, including a nice nail file, but onto the blade itself, just like the case, we've got a simple stainless here with very thin geometry. Makes it a great slicer, and about 2.5 inches total on this design. Now, the lock on this admittedly works a little weirdly. You've got this disengagement tab right here, and it does take a little more care to use safely since your fingers are going kind of right where the edge wants to go when you're closing. So definitely keep that in mind. Now, the lock on this knife, and indeed the lock on most knives, isn't designed to save you from big mistakes, but it will protect you from some of the small oopsies out there. And with these nice grippy inserts on the handles, it makes this knife easier to hold onto than that classic red-handled Swiss Army knife you may be thinking of. But if you really want to go with one of those classic red Swiss Army knives, and I can't blame you, it's a material called Celador, and it's the archetype. It's what makes a Swiss Army knife a Swiss Army knife. And virtually any of them are going to be a fine option, let's be honest, but the one I'm going to recommend is the model known simply as the Compact, and this is also a $45 knife. Now, this is actually one of their standard size knives, but it's called the Compact because it only has 2 layers of tools, but they pack a lot of versatility in with the selection that they include. We've got a little bit more blade length here, almost 2 3/4 of an inch. Same nice thin geometry, but no lock on this model. Now, on the main side, along with the blade, you've also got a nice healthy sized pair of scissors, as well as Victorinox's combo tool. And it's called that because they actually combine the functionality of the bottle opener and the can opener into one tool, and it really does work at both of those jobs. In addition to that, you've got a small wire stripper section here at the bottom, and of course you can use the tip of that as a flathead screwdriver. Now, on the back, you've got Victorinox's parcel hook, which isn't necessarily the most apparently useful tool, but they do include a nice section of nail file here on the back, so you get a little bit of extra functionality. You've also got the corkscrew, which you gotta love, and this model actually comes with a few extras that most Swiss Army knives don't have. First of all, you've got that small eyeglass screwdriver that screws into the corkscrew itself, or stores right inside the corkscrew. You've also got a nice small sewing pin here, and in addition to that toothpick and tweezers, you've also got a pressurized ballpoint pen that can even write upside down. It's just a really cool addition, and like I said, they really do pack a ton of functionality into this nice small knife. Now, when I think of classic brands, and a lot of those classic brands really do make good options to get your knife collection started, right up there with Case and Swiss Army is Buck Knives. I've got two recommendations from them today, a modern one as well as one of the more traditional designs. And the modern one is actually pretty much my favorite knife to recommend as a youngster's first knife, and that is the Buck Bantam with the medium-sized blade. There are a few different options available, but the medium comes with the 3 1/8 of an inch blade length. It's a real reasonable price on these designs too. This is just an $18 knife. Certainly budget oriented, but it's not a knife that they're ever gonna have to be embarrassed by. It's just a solid design. The handle itself is a good length for both small hands to control, and yet it's still gonna work for adults as well. Now you've got a bit of a finger guard integrated as part of the handle shape. That's gonna keep the index finger well away from the edge, which is definitely beneficial, especially during those formative years of new knife ownership. You've got dual thumb studs on the blade so that you've got one hand opening, as well as that lock back for security. And you've even got a pocket clip here, which is going to be easier to carry than the slip joints we've looked at so far. Well, they're not technically slip joints. Only one of them was, the others had locks, but you know what I mean. Now the blade itself is a nice modern drop point shape. It's narrow enough in the tip, so you've got a good amount of precision there, and it's just a good shape for all around use. You've got 420HC stainless steel with a hollow grind, good solid budget steel. And it's got a nice stone-washed finish so that it's gonna look good even as it starts to get scratched up and used. This is just a solid, no-nonsense folder, and just all the design elements really come together to make this a solid case for itself as a youngster's first pocket knife. Now with Buck, you can always go the classic route too, with the big letters quote-unquote Buck knife. Either go with the full-size 110 folding Hunter or the more manageable 112 Ranger, which I've got here. These start at $55. This one here comes with finger grooves, and that is a few dollars more. But both versions have nice fat handles with ebony wood inlays and brass bolsters. Not quite pocket friendly, I'll admit. It does come with a belt sheath, but this would make a great camping folder if that's what you're looking for your first knife to do. Now they do have modern slim variants of this knife that come with thinner handles, pocket clips, and thumb studs if you want a more EDC friendly version of these knives. I've actually got one of the 110 folding Hunters here to show you. But there's something about that classic version that's just inspiring. It's pretty much been unchanged since they were introduced in the 1960s because it's a fantastic classic that still works. You've got that unmistakable Buck knife look and a good blade design. 420HC steel again, and Buck has probably the best heat treat in the business on this material, so you're going to be getting some good performance for your dollar. Got a nice high hollow grind and an acute tip. You can do an awful lot with this knife. All right, next up we've got a knife that's definitely more modern, but this is another design that's probably going to stick around at least as long as those Buck knives have at this point. And this is the Kershaw Leek, starting right now at about $45. And this is just a great slim EDC design. Also makes a perfect gentleman's knife thanks to that slim construction and the simple stainless steel frame. And let's be honest, very elegant looking blade shape. You also get the fun of a spring assisted opening action. It's not a switchblade, but Kershaw calls it their speed safe assisted opening. Makes this a super fun knife to flip open. Plus that flipper tab forms an index finger guard. Definitely, like I said, an important consideration for the knives I want on this list. Now that blade itself is super sharp and very pointy. It's a bit more of a premium steel than what we've seen so far, and that's Sandvik 14C28N. It's a bit of an alphabet soup, but what you're getting is a fine-grained Swedish steel that's easy to maintain and can take a wickedly sharp edge. And this is the perfect shape for most medium-duty everyday tasks. Opening packages or letters, cutting up a box, what have you. Now one thing to note, you can see here that this is a screw together construction type of design. You've got an adjustable pivot as well as removable screws here on the back. Everything we've seen so far comes with a pinned construction, which isn't adjustable, but it's also a little more foolproof, so to speak. Just keep in mind that some of these screws may need adjustment over time. You've got a 2-position pocket clip. You can carry it tip up or tip down on the right side. And you can get frame or liner locks. And your finger on these is going to move across the blade, so it takes a little bit more care to close. So keep that in mind depending on who you'll be giving this knife to. But the name of the game here with the Leek are options. This is just the basic version, but there are higher end blade steels if you want. There's also lots of colors available, so if you are gifting this, you can match up the color of the knife to the personality of that person you're giving it to. And those color options are especially nice. I'm kind of thinking of my own childhood right now. If you've got a pair of brothers who might maybe get into arguments over which thing belongs to who, in this case, each one of the brothers can get their own color. Now this next one might be a slightly more advanced pick due to the materials. One material in particular, you've got D2 blade steel here, which does come with an edge that can last a nice long time, but they are slightly harder to sharpen. So do keep that in mind again if you're gifting one of these knives. But at just under 50 bucks, this Civivi Elementum, it's got pretty much everything the modern pocket knife needs. The blade is just under 3 inches, so you can carry it just about anywhere, and that drop point shape is all about being versatile. They've also given it a hollow grind and made it so that the edge itself is kept very thin. And that's definitely going to help make it easier to sharpen, plus it's going to cut pretty efficiently too. Now I've got a flipper with this knife as well, and you get the benefit of that finger guard integration. And instead of an assisted opening action, you've actually got ball bearings in the pivot paired with a nice detent on the blade. And they do those ball bearings to reduce friction, and with that detent tuned in, you get a nice snappy manual opening action. The handles here also feature a liner lock, as well as a deep carry pocket clip on the right side. Now this knife also features that screw together construction, so it is adjustable over time, and it's also got a nice open backed construction, so it's going to be very easy to keep clean, especially when pocket lint starts to accumulate. Again, benefit of this knife design, you've got lots of color options. I've just got the standard black G10 here, but there are a bunch of other different colors. You can also get micarta. There's even some wood options available too. Lastly, about the handle, and it actually shares this with the Leek a little bit, you've got a simple, almost elliptical handle shape to both of these knives. That means they're going to suit a wide range of hand sizes, be they kids or adults. Now the last folder on this list is actually one of my all-time favorite default knife recommendations for just about everybody, because I know it's going to work, and that's the Spyderco Delica. And I like it because of its versatility and the scope of options in the range. Now the base model started about 84 bucks, and you've got fiberglass reinforced nylon for the handles and VG10 stainless for the blade. It's going to give you great edge retention, and it's probably the best of the stainless options we've looked at so far, but it's still not a bear to keep sharp. Now you can step up the ladder to more blade steels and higher end handle options, but as a place to get started, these standard versions are tough to beat. Like the Elementum, you've got a 3-inch blade, so you're not going to have to worry about it being too long to carry in a lot of places. And with a full flat grind and reasonably thin blade material, it means this knife is built for slicing, which, let's be honest, is probably the primary characteristic you want in a knife this size. Now the handles provide a lot of grip with their bidirectional texturing, and you've got a full-size grip behind the blade, which I appreciate, and that important integrated finger guard. We've also got that all-important array of colors to choose from as well, and a lot of them are what I would say, quote-unquote, socially acceptable. What I mean by that is the green on this one in particular goes a long way to making this pocket knife be seen as more a simple tool than anything else. The other fantastic thing about the Delica is that it is a completely ambidextrous design, so it's going to work for pretty much everyone. You've got that blade cutout hole for one-handed opening, 4-position pocket clip. You can carry it tip up or down on the left or right side, and of course the mid-mounted lock back, which is just as easy to actuate with either hand. It even comes with the David Boyd dent, which makes it easier to locate the lock just by feel, and it's supposed to also help when you're really bearing down on the knife from it accidentally disengaging. The Delica is a knife that just plain works, and in my opinion, it's something every knife guy or gal should have at some point, so why not start them outright? Now, if you're looking for something different than a standard folder and you want some multi-tool functionality, but the Swiss Army knives aren't quite doing it for you, you might as well go to one of the inventors of the full-size multi-tool genre, that being Leatherman, and I think their Skeletool is a great model to start with. Now these tools start just around 65 bucks, but the one I want to suggest is the CX version, which comes in at 80. And the reason being is this model has a plain-edged blade with no partial serrations, which in the long run is going to be even easier to sharpen, even if serrations do have their place. Also, as a bonus, this model actually gets a bump up in the blade material as well, and you've got 154 cm stainless, which is another solid performer. The blade's held open with a liner lock, and it is one-hand operable, and you can access it from outside of the tool, so you don't actually need to open the full tool to get to the blade, which is something older multi-tools had to contend with. But when you do open it, you've got that classic combination pliers head. Now you can carry this tool in a belt pouch, but you also have the option of using the pocket clip, so it is easier to carry than most of Leatherman's full-size models, which is why I picked it out for this list. They've also pared down the functionality just a little bit to just a few bare essentials so that you're getting the most out of the weight that you're going to have on your belt or in your pocket. Now you get a screwdriver here, and it does come with interchangeable bits. There's two sizes of Phillips and flathead drivers included. The extra one lives here in the handle when you're ready to swap it out. But you can also expand your options with their Leatherman bit kits, which have even more driver options. Lastly, as I close this guy back up here, we've got a carabiner loop here on the back, so you could also clip it to your belt loop or a piece of gear to carry it that way. And that also acts as a bottle opener, which, as we all know, is required for any multi-tool worth its salt. All right, finally, I've got a few fixed blade options, and when you're talking good, cheap fixed blades, you've got to talk about Mora, or Morakniv as the full name is pronounced in their native Swedish. Now, for younger folks or folks getting started, the Basic and Pro series is what gets my nod, even though their companion series is probably more popular, and the reason for that is it comes down to the handle design. Not only do these have a nice filling grip when you're really bearing down on it, you've also got that good finger guard, which again, I can't stress that enough in my opinion for less advanced knife users. The sheaths on these are also nice and simple. It's a nice click-in design. Altogether, it's a very lightweight package on the belt, and there's even a hole here on the bottom so moisture can drain out if it gets wet. Now these knives come with two different steel options. You can get either a carbon steel, which is equivalent to 1095, just a classic tough carbon steel. It does require a bit more careful upkeep though, so if you want to simplify things a bit, you can go for one of the stainless options, which is a 12C27 stainless, which is actually a Swedish relative to the 14C28N we looked at earlier. Again, pardon the alphabet soup nomenclature going on, but it's just a nice, tough stainless option. Now, as for the differences between the Basic and the Pro, they do have the exact same handle shape. The blades themselves are just a little bit different. They're both the same length, coming in under 4 inches, but the Pro has a bit of a broader blade. And if you're going hunting, it's got a little bit more belly as well, so that might be a better option. Whereas the Basic has a bit more of an acute point, so you might have a little bit more precision near the tip when you're doing wood carving. So speaking of wood carving, these knives have a little bit of a different grind or geometry than we've looked at on these knives so far, and that's the Scandinavian style or Scandi grind. And it's different than what we think of as quote-unquote conventional in this country, but it's pretty traditional when you get into those Nordic countries. Essentially, you've got two short bevels that come right down to the edge itself. It's kind of like a double-planed chisel, and that actually makes them a champ at woodworking. That said, the blades on these are thin enough that they're still going to be able to do some more varied tasks decently as well. They're certainly easy to sharpen too once you get the hang of it, as since you're able to lay that bevel flat on a sharpening stone, you can actually feel your angle. But that is a different method than a lot of people like to teach in this country, which is why I like to recommend something a little bit different if you're buying for someone who's going through a program like the Scouts. Now, if the troop allows the carry of fixed blades, the CRKT Mossback Hunter from Tom Krein is a great option, and it's crazy affordable for what you get at just $22. You'll be able to sharpen it with pretty much any conventional methods too, since you've got a drop point blade just over 3 inches that has a hollow grind with a secondary edge. It's a good shape for hunting, as the name of the knife would suggest, but it's also going to be good for varied uses around the camp. Now you've got tough SK5 carbon steel here. It's full tang for strength, and a coating does help with the rust a little bit, but it still is going to require care, but maybe a little bit less than a fully uncoated carbon steel blade, so it's going to be a good thing to train on. And the bonus is this SK5 is going to sharpen really easily as well. Now we've got a simple nylon sheath here with a simple belt loop on the back. Does the job pretty nicely, especially when you consider the price of these knives, but the handle design is what really seals this knife for me. Now we've got G10 handle scales for a more premium feel than the injection molded Moras we just looked at. It's got a finger guard, yes, as well as a simple elliptical shape that's really going to grow with you or them. It's always going to be a useful knife, even years into the future. All right, that's it for my list of the best starter knives, best beginner knives, best first knives, whatever you want to call it. And hopefully this gave you some good guidance, whether you're looking for some gift ideas or just looking for some suggestions for yourself. Would love to hear your feedback down in the comments, especially regulars of this channel. How do you think I did? Share us stories of your first knife or what you like to give out as your first knife when you are giving out a gift. Meantime, if you want to get your hands on any of these knives, we will leave links in the description, and those will take you over to knifecenter.com. While you're over there, if you're going to buy one of these cool knives anyway, you might as well sign up for our Knife Rewards program. I definitely recommend it because you might as well earn some free money to spend on your next knife when you pick one of these up. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center signing off. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. See you next time.